The AFL season starts in about a month's time. It's still a little bit early to get a gauge on how teams will be in 2025. However, I still want to give my early season predictions. Some of these are a bit controversial. These aren't my actual predictions, so don't take them personally. Bottom of the table, I've gone shocking here. I've gone controversial. This is why you clicked on the video. I've gone Richmond. Richmond are the third youngest side in the league. They've got the lowest average number of games played in the league. They are such an inexperienced side. They lost Liam Baker. They lost Jack Graham. They lost Shai Bolton. They lost Daniel Rioli. They have lost bucket loads of players. They are entering a new era in a hard-hitting way. Their approach is very, very risky, but I think it's the sort of thing you've got to do when you want to get out of this slump. Adamuze, not completely convinced he's the right man for the job, but you've got to say Richmond are going full steam into this rebuild. They're not shying away from it, and you've got to give them respect. However, there is zero chance. Look, there have been some wooden spoon predictions I've gotten wrong over the years. I can 100% sit here and say there is absolutely zero chance Richmond don't finish bottom in 2025. In 17th, Essendon. And look, the Bombers fans, they won't be happy, but this is why I've got him in 17th. Brad Scott, don't really rate him. He did a good job just over 10 years ago with North Melbourne, got him to a prelim. But apart from that, he hasn't done a lot with the teams he's coached. Essendon aren't an overly talented side. They didn't do a whole lot in the trade period. They drafted okay, Isaac Kako, Sardell Harley, but I just don't know how I feel about them. They're a bit of a nothing team, and there are going to be lots of teams competing in 2025, and I just think they don't have enough to compete with those. It's a very, very competitive season this year, and you've got to be more than just average to actually make a dent in the ladder, and I don't think Essendon are more than average. I've got them in 17th. I do genuinely think that this is the highest floor the league's ever had. In 16th, I've got North Melbourne. Look, they're still the youngest side in the comp. They're still very inexperienced. They've drafted very well yet again, but the ruse time isn't just yet. I know North fans are probably sick of it. They might climb a little bit higher than 16th. I don't think they'll be bottom 2. They might climb a little bit higher, but to be honest, it's just going to be a very, very hard bottom 4 to break out of. George Wardlaw out for 10 weeks to start the season is not the news North Melbourne want to hear, considering they're trying to bolster that midfield. Caleb Daniel and Luke Parker are two really, really good experienced pickups, which makes me think North Melbourne might be able to climb to a mid-table position, which would be a relief for their fans, to be honest. But I just couldn't find them a spot higher. I mean, come on, Tristan Jerry, Caleb Daniel, Harry Sheezel, Luke Davies-Uniacke, Colby McKercher, Luke Parker, George Wardlaw, Jai Simpkin. They've got so much talent, so much individual talent, and it will grow over the years, right? But they're still in the transition period of actually getting their youngsters to really bolster this team to a final side, and they're not that just yet. Look, they definitely might be a higher staggered side than 16th, but I can't find a spot for them. In 15th, I've got Melbourne, and they are such an interesting side to watch going into 2025 because they've definitely got the players. They've drafted well. Judd McVee's one of my favourite players that a club's picked up in the past few years. I thought Judd McVee's 2024 was absolutely outstanding, went really unnoticed by the rest of the AFL world. They've still got the engine room of Gawn chucking it down the throats of a hopefully much better Clayton Oliver, as well as Christian Petrarca, who was riddled by injury towards the end of 2024. They're really going to have to rely on their young guys in 2025, and they've drafted well in recent years. I just don't think they'll click very well going into 2025. They're going to need a few more years to gel. Again, some great individual talent, but I think some old guys will be out the door at the end of this year. I think Melbourne are going to undergo a bit of a transition period. I don't think it's going to be a massive transition period, but I think they might end up spending a year or two down the bottom of the ladder before shooting back up. In 14th, I've got the West Coast Eagles. West Coast are a team, unfortunately, I've got to be a ticker for in 2025. I'm not excited to watch them play by any means. I'm not hoping they do well by any means, but I think they might just be okay. They did incredibly well both in the trade period and the draft. Liam Baker, Jack Graham, and Matt Owies are three really good pickups. I think Matt Owies is a really underrated forward, and he's good for what West Coast are trying to do at the moment. Jack Graham's the experienced head, as well as Liam Baker. They both bring premiership experience. Look, a guy like Tom Barrass is going to be a massive loss. Their backline's going to have to fill a massive hole there. So, you know, I could even see North Melbourne and West Coast maybe switching around, you know, fighting around this mid-table spot. But their draftees are pretty much going to go straight into 22. Bo Allen is an absolute gun. Luca Grego's been in and about. Tom Gross, however you say the name, he has been reported to be, here it is, training the house down. And Job Shanahan, there have been some very good things coming out of the West Coast camp about him. Maybe it's because I live in WA and I'm just hearing heaps of positive things about West Coast. But look, I've been hearing good things. I've been seeing good things. And I think the Eagles might be an okay side in 2025. Harley Reid will have another year under his belt, complementing with the likes of the more experienced mids like Tim Kelly. I think West Coast are in for a promising year, and I think their fans will be excited to watch them play this year. In 13th, I've got the Brisbane Lions. I think it's going to be a premiership hangover for the Lions. I don't think this is a completely unpopular call. I think some people might have them around the 7th, 8th mark. I think they're going to drop off quite a bit. I think Joe Danaher leaves one of the biggest holes in the premiership side you have ever seen. And I think they're really going to struggle to fill that void. They got Sam Day in the preseason draft. Obviously, just nowhere near the caliber of Danaher. They're looking at Oscar Allen next off-season. I think Brisbane are going to have a year down the bottom and be straight back up. Fagan's a great coach. They've got a great young list. They're transitioning really well while still competing. Yeah, I think Brisbane are in a good spot. I just think they're going to have a down year this year. I think they're going to get off to a slow start like they did in 2024, but I just don't think they'll be able to recover without the like of a mainstay in that forward line. Eric Hipwood can't be that guy. Well, we've got to talk about Levi Ashcroft. He's going to be such a good addition to that Brisbane engine room. Brisbane are a bit like Freo, where you're sort of wondering, what is that midfield rotation going to look like? There are so many names in there. And, God, the Lions are going to be scary through the middle. I just don't think that in the key positions they're going to hold up very well. In 12th, I've got the Gold Coast Suns. I cannot put them out of mediocrity until I actually see something. They did quite well in their additions. John Noble, Daniel Rioli, Leo Lombard, Elliot Himmelberger, all really good pickups, to be honest. Even former Melbourne Renegade Zach Evans, who I'm not sure if he's going to get a game, but it's quite funny he's actually playing AFL football. Their losses are absolutely catastrophic. Jack Lukosius is a horrific loss. He is such an important swingman to have. Every club would want to have someone, maybe not Jack Lukosius, but a player that resembles Jack Lukosius. Just such an important Mr. Fix-It sort of guy. So strong, such a presence, and Port Adelaide are really going to reap the rewards of him. Gold Coast just will have that key position hole. I feel like they've almost overstocked on halfback. Not really sure what's going to happen through there. They've got John Noble, Daniel Rioli, Lockie Weller. There are so many names running through there. Yeah, I think, again, they've got the talent. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to put it together. Yeah, the Suns need to show something. In 11th, I've got the Western Bulldogs. Their incomings weren't great. Their outgoings, catastrophic. Jack McRae, who was a bit of a Mr. Fix-It for Bevo, was underutilised and has ended up going to the Saints. Caleb Daniel, he's gone to the Roos. They've lost a really good leader's head, and I think he will be missed massively by the Bulldogs. And then Bailey Smith. I know he didn't play for the entirety of 2024, but his talent, when he's playing, the Bulldogs are at their best. And yeah, he's gone, and the Bulldogs are going to have to find a new gear in 2025. They're definitely in and around the 8. They've definitely got the talent. Riley Sanders is another year under his belt. He's going to get some more midfield responsibility, and we know how impactful he can be. Luke Beveridge is my main issue. I don't rate him as a coach that much, and this might be his last year in charge. I don't really see Bevo doing a lot that helps the Bulldogs this year, and yeah, I think the coach is the main issue, to be honest. Cue the comments. 10th, I've got Hawthorn. Now, just calm. I've got a thought process behind this. Yes, their glaring issue was the back line, and they've gone and gotten Josh Bagwell and Tom Barrass. I completely understand that, right? Completely understand it. But they are so young. Like, they are super young still. And I don't think people understand how tough it was for Hawthorn to get to that position last year. They fought so hard, and it felt like Hawthorn were on cloud 9 most weeks. And that isn't a sustainable style. Not necessarily their style of football, but I think with a young team, mentally, it can be very fatiguing. Very similar to Fremantle in 2022. We were a very young side. We were sort of just riding the wave, taking it week by week, just enjoying what was a very fun season as a young side. And we regressed massively in 2023. And all of a sudden, we're a very, very big contender in 2025. Hawthorn won't be down for long. This might be their only year down. In fact, they might be up. I've just got a feeling that with a young side, they're going to regress a little bit, and they're going to be put back in their place, and they'll be better for it in the long term. I don't think Hawthorn are a bad side whatsoever. I just think they need a year down, and they'll come back out of it a much, much better side. 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. In 9th, I've got Carlton. Oh, it brings me no pleasure in putting Carlton 9th. Carlton, no doubt, have undisputed talent. They didn't do a lot in the off-season. Jagger Smith, definitely their main incoming. Losing guys like Matt Owies and Matt Kennedy probably loses Carlton a little bit of versatility. And overall, the entire reason why Carlton are 9th is because I couldn't find them a spot in the top 8. Like, they probably are a top 8 team, don't get me wrong. And I think they very well might make the top 8. But I'm going through 8 teams above them, whom I think are destined for big, big years. And I couldn't find a spot for Carlton. It was as simple as that. There are just 8 teams better than them. And there might not be. They might be a very good side in 2025, but I honestly can't justify why they're ninth. Right, this will boil a few Carlton fans. In 8th, they've got St Kilda. I think the Saints did really well in the trade period. Jack McRae, Jack Carroll, 2 really strong signings. In the draft, I thought they also did really well with especially Toby Travaglia, but also Alex Toru. Josh Battle's probably their biggest loss, but apart from that, St Kilda are going in mainly unchanged. They're a reasonably young side with some absolute veteran superstars. And by veteran, probably in the prime of their careers. And I think that this goes down to Ross Lyon. I think I sort of had this prediction with the Saints last year, and it didn't come through. But Ross Lyon has a habit of bringing average lists to finals. And he hasn't done it with the Saints this time around yet, but he did it with the Dockers on multiple occasions. That Dockers side that made the grand final wasn't all that, but Ross Lyon just has an ability to get the absolute best out of his list. This is his 3rd year here. This is where he starts to cook, and I think Ross will take the Saints back to September. In 7th, I've got the Adelaide Crows. If they don't make finals, I reckon Matthew Nicks has to go. I think 0 finals appearances in 6 years would be an absolute disaster for Adelaide. In the off-season, some absolutely quality pickups. First of all, from the Giants, Isaac Cumming and especially James Peatling. I love both of those players. 2 really strong additions to the list. Sid Draper's an incredible pickup in the draft, South Australian local. And Alex Neil-Bullen is that pressure forward. He was so crucial in that Melbourne Premiership side. Every great team has a pressure forward that does all the dirty work. Alex Neil-Bullen does that, and he's also a very clean goal scorer. They didn't really lose anyone in the offseason either. Honestly, Adelaide have just strengthened their list. They haven't weakened it whatsoever. They're going to be a good side in 2025, Adelaide. Their engine room looks stacked. Their forward line, led by the experienced head of Tex Walker, followed by some younger guys like Darcy Fogarty. Their back line looking primed as ever. I really, really like Adelaide going into 2025. And with this list, if they don't make finals, I think Matthew Nicks has to go. In 6th, I've got the Sydney Swans. Apart from Luke Parker going, I don't think they've changed massively, to be honest, the Swans. I think they're very much sort of the same side. Which, look, they could propel themselves into a top 4 finish, considering how good they were with this list last year for the majority of the season. But I, again, just feel like there are 5 sides better than them. They're reasonably solid in all areas. Obviously, they've got that incredible engine room with Golden, Warner, Heaney, Brodie Grundy in the ruck. Look, they're very, very well primed all over the ground. Probably apart from the forward line. Their forward line's where it gets a bit iffy. I think their forward line almost cost them on grand final day. They're going to have a bit of runners-up fatigue. I don't know if they'll start the year very strong. Yeah, Sydney are a very interesting watch in 2025. In 5th, I've got Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide just really added a bit of depth. They're pretty much running back to the same list that got them to a prelim, to be fair. Ken knows how to get this side to a prelim. He needs to take the extra step. It's always a debate every offseason. Is Ken the right man for the job? He keeps taking them deep into finals. Should they be getting further? Probably. I don't know where I sit on Ken Hinkley. Yeah, look, they didn't really lose a lot apart from Dan Houston, who obviously is quite a big loss, but I think Port Adelaide probably have some guys that can replace him. I'm not saying Rory Atkins is a like-for-like swap, but he'll sort of play that role. Whether he's best 22 or not is yet to be determined. I think they drafted well. I was gutted when Port Adelaide took Joe Berry. He was someone Fremantle were really heavily looking at. And Joe Richards from Collingwood, I think, goes straight into the best 22 for Port. I think he was borderline best 22 for Collingwood, and he is such a good, crumbing, clean pressure forward that a lot of people haven't heard about, but he played a few games for the Pies, and he's a really, really good player. Port Adelaide just need to go a little bit further in 2025. It's a very, very contested sort of top of the table, so they really could finish anywhere from 1st to 10th. Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for Port Adelaide, but I think they've got what it takes. Ken just needs to take him that extra step further. He's got over a decade of coaching under his belt. He needs to use that to his advantage. In 4th, I've got Collingwood. I think what Collingwood have done is they won the flag in 23. They've had a bit of a down year in 24. And they're going to come firing back up in 2025. And they're going for it because they are so old. They're probably the oldest side in the league, but they're old, full of superstars. Funnily enough, their best player is super young, being Nick Dacos. But the rest of them are aging massively. And they've added to that Dan Houston getting on a bit, but in the absolute peak of his powers at the moment. What an addition Dan Houston is. Tim Membry, again, good depth. Collingwood have always sort of lacked in the forward line, and I think Membry may very well find himself in the best 22. John Noble, they traded away, who was a bit in and out of the Pies side, to be fair. Joe Richards is a pretty big loss, but honestly, I think the Pies are so well stocked all over the ground. They're greatly stocked in the key position areas, down back and forward. In the midfield, they're looking so good, and I can't really see a weakness in Collingwood's game. Craig McRae knows how to get the best out of these players, and I think they're going to run it back and make a pretty big premiership push. rubbish. In third, I've got the Giants. Really, the only 2 losses in the offseason for GWS were Cumming and Perryman. Perryman was a bit of a mainstay, but Cumming was a bit in and out of the side with his injury issues, so he's not really the bigger loss. Perryman, they've got a gap to fill, but again, they're just a really young, exciting side, yet they've got the experience pieces to surely make them contend. Like, they are making prelims, they are making finals year after year. Surely this is the year they take it one step further and potentially make a grand final. They're a definite top 4 side in my opinion, and surely they actually provide in 2025, because I'm not going to say they've been like Port Adelaide, but they've sort of been in and about every single year, and surely this is the year they just pounce. In second, I've got the Dockers. Cue the comments. UCATT's biased. UCATT doesn't know football. UCATT's stupid. I don't mind. Fremantle are coming second. Yeah, I think we come second. This is the year. I mean, you take a look at 2024. And we were a top 2 side for most of the year, a top 4 side, however you want to put it. For 20 weeks of that season, we were a top 4 team. We monumentally choked in those last 5 weeks. No excuses. Absolutely terrible for those last 5 weeks. I'm still so scarred by that Port Adelaide game, the Giants game, the Cats game, the Bombers game, big time. I'm so scarred from those last few weeks. But we've done really well in the trade period. We've done really well in the draft. We haven't lost anyone really. Shai Bolton obviously is the main guy, but look, he's picked up an injury in preseason. Touch wood, he's okay. But Shai Bolton's the guy that's really going to bolster Fremantle. We were lacking a creative forward that was young, had the spark. We were still relying on Michael Walters a little bit too much. And I'm not going to chuck any dirt on Sonny because I love him to bits. But we needed a younger guy to step in and fill the void. And I think Shai Bolton's that guy that can pinch hit in the midfield and go forward and provide an impact in the forward half. Our draftees, Jaron Carr, father-son, won't get a game. Charlie Nichols probably won't get a game. He's going to take a bit of time to develop, as well as Aiden Riddle, those key position guys. Murphy Reed, I've been down to Freo training a few times, and Murphy Reed looks like the man. He is such a good player. He was expected to maybe go top 5, and he fell to us at 17. I was over the moon. And then Quinton Narkle is a bit of depth. You can't complain about that. The Dockers are overly stocked in the midfield. Sean Darcy's just gone to Qatar. He's looking as fit as ever. The forward half, Josh Tracy's priming for a massive year alongside Jay Amos, who's put on a lot of bulk. Alex Pearce had a career best year last year, working with the emerging Josh Draper. Luke Ryan down there. Jeremy Sharp locked up a wing. Look, we've probably got the best list in the league. Whether we can put that together is another big issue. I think something that's similar about both Adelaide and Fremantle is that both their coaches are under pressure to perform this year, maybe to a different extent for Justin Longmuir, because this list is the best list in the comp, in my personal opinion. We are absolutely stacked, and when we're at our best, we are fantastic, but our main issue has always been consistency, closing it out in big stages of the season, because those final 5 games absolutely haunted me in 2024. Please, Freo, put it together. And in first, I've got the Geelong Cats. They had a few older guys retire, but they literally bolstered the one area of the ground they needed. They've got the key position guys down back. They've got the key position guys down forward. Their midfield was probably lacking a bit of speed, so they just went and got Bailey Smith, you know. It's ridiculous, the pool that Geelong have. They've probably had 1 year maybe down towards the mid-table in the past 10, just sort of transitioning from older to new. And they've done that transition so many times without dropping off massively. They are such an admirable football club, and I cannot believe that they're probably going to be close to premiership favourites again in 2025. Yeah, what an incredible team. Every year that I've been doing this channel, I think once I put Geelong really low on the table and I learnt my lesson really quickly. Yeah, never write off the Cats. Just never, ever write off the Cats. They are going to be a really good team in 2025. Chris Scott knows what to do. The players know what to do. There's such a good culture down there. New stands being built. Mate, everything's mint down in Geelong. And yeah, they're going to be pretty good in 2025.